Welcome to The Knowledge. Political extremism comes in all shapes and sizes, but in recent years it seems that it's political Islamism which is taking most of these headlines. Today I'm going to go to the Centre for Social Cohesion and talk to Robin Simcox. The CSC is a think tank based here in Westminster which looks at this threat and tries to decipher just how much of a threat political Islamism really is to our country. I'm here with Robin Simcox today. Robin, thanks very much for coming on the programme. First question, how did the UK become such a hub for Islamic extremists?
Well, I think there's two things, primarily. The first would be in the 1990s, the MI5 and some of the most extreme radical preachers in the UK effectively had a covenant of security, where the preachers would be allowed free rein to incite, fundraise, plot in the UK. MI5 would keep an eye on them, but allow them effectively a free rein in return for their freedom. The fallacy of the policy was highlighted especially on 9/11, but I think it was only after 7/7 that they began to realise especially just how damaging this had become. I think the second, possibly more important, is that multiculturalism to an extent has shown itself to have failed. The policy and the idea that communities could effectively police themselves, that any immigration should be put with people already living there, has created, unfortunately, ghettos in certain areas. You unfortunately now have parts of the UK, and this has been a problem throughout Europe, but I think the UK is especially susceptible to it, where they are just fertile breeding grounds for impressionable young minds to become radicalised. Some have gone on to commit acts of terrorism both in the UK and abroad.
Do you think double standards have been set by the government when it comes to dealing with Islamist extremists?
I don't think there's any doubt about that. The government regularly consult with the Muslim Council of Britain, who are closely aligned to Jamaat-e-Islami, a clerical fascist party from South Asia. Recently, Dawood Abdullah of the Muslim Council of Britain advocated the attacking of British Navy ships if it tried to stop arms being smuggled into Gaza for the Hamas. Dr. Abdul Bari has advocated the stoning of women under certain circumstances. The government also speak to the likes of the Muslim Association of Britain, closely aligned to the Muslim Brotherhood, who are a misogynistic, racist party that would advocate strict interpretations of Sharia law being introduced. The likes of the MCB and the MAB are essentially comparable to the BNP. Now, of course, you wouldn't speak to the BNP, and rightly so, but this hasn't been applied to certain Muslim groups.
In the young, do you feel that political extremism will always appeal? I'm thinking simply because of general tendencies towards youthful rebellion.
I think, to an extent, youthful rebellion happens is probably quite healthy, as long as it extends to occasionally drinking too much, perhaps, or, you know, there's an extent youthful rebellion can go to. The fact is that political Islam and radical Islam has shown itself to be much more than merely youthful rebellion. Similarly to fascism and communism, it displays and promises some kind of utopia if only certain policies are changed and certain books followed. For example, in the case of political Islam, where it says the answer to all life's problems lie in the Quran. Now, for young people, especially impressionable people who have perhaps immigrated into the UK and don't feel like Britain is their home, this can be quite a powerful and appealing message. So while youthful rebellion will always be with us, I think this is something very distinct from it.
Where would you say the government has to improve its strategy with dealing with what is a very real Islamist threat?
Well, the first thing I would say is give Muslims the dignity of treating them like they can't just all be summarised into one group. Too often the government has been keen to find groups that they think can deliver them the Muslim voice, or the voice on the street of Muslims. Obviously they're hugely diverse communities, and the government should accept this, number one, and accept there isn't one group that will solve all their answers. Secondly, if they are going to engage, there has to be stricter guidelines. There is no point discussing or giving public money to groups that advocate the killing of British soldiers abroad, or who apologise for it, who would advocate or apologise for terrorism abroad or terrorism in the UK, who would advocate or encourage attacks on Israel, who would be misogynistic, racist, sexist in their attitudes domestically. There is nothing the government can take from discussing political Islam or Islam with these groups. It's been tried. All it means is the middle ground is constantly shifted to more and more radical interpretations of Islam. The liberal Muslims and many secularists become disenchanted, they become disheartened, because the government isn't seeking them out. It's seeking out those with the loudest voice, and that has been hugely, hugely damaging to us in the past, and it will be again in the future.
Well, it certainly seems that political Islamism isn't an issue we can bury our heads in the sand about. At the same time, there are an awful lot of views out there on what is a very contentious issue. If you would like to share your views, please leave them on the website www.catch21.co.uk. Keep discussing and keep checking back to the website for new programming.